I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen. You can join us every weekday at noon Eastern, however you found us. We're available in the Action Network app, also available over on the Action Network YouTube page. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000. First bet insurance. Terms and conditions apply. A lot of basketball coming up later in the show. Anthony Dabbundo is going to join the conversation. There is a game we need to break down. It's huge on the calendar tonight in the ACC. Not many ACC spots you get to circle these days because the conference has had a horrible year. But we're going to get ourselves hyped up for this one, and we're looking forward to that. Also, we'll take a gander at the NBA slate and see what we have in store. So that's coming up. But first, we welcome in our predictive analytics team in Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen, as we normally do. Now, during the season, we would have these guys on. And before I get to those guys, I should highlight some line movement ahead of Super Bowl 57. Kansas City, late last night, folks, opened as 2-point favorites, and then, bam, the money came flying in on the Philadelphia Eagles. Looking at the Action app, close to 73% of the dollars, the money line dollars, are coming in on the Eagles. So folks are getting in on the Eagles now, and Kansas City is a 2-point dog. Now we welcome in Koerner and Giffen to react and look at some of the other lines that they might be interested in. Fellas, totals at 49.5. Eagles remain favorites. Koerner, what jumps out to you as you start to dissect Super Bowl 57?
Yeah, so when it comes to the spread, I have the Eagles minus 1.5. So I'm currently in line with the current spread. It seems like everyone's piling on the Eagles. We're showing 65% of the action has come in on Philly. So there's a chance this gets to Chiefs +3. That's when I think I'd be interested. But for now, I'm staying away from the spread. My initial lean is on the under 49.5. And kind of like I said, heading into last week's game, Patrick Mahomes looked closer to 100% to start the game. Like, you wouldn't tell that he had a high ankle sprain. However, as the game went on, he took some hits. He made a couple awkward throws where it did look like he tweaked his ankle a bit. So it did become an issue later in the game. But I think having the extra week of rest will help him. But he's going to be less than 100% for the Super Bowl. But more importantly, the Chiefs wide receivers saw a ton of injuries, so we need to monitor the status of Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman, even Justin Watson missed the game. So that's what I'm going to be monitoring leading into the Super Bowl. And the Eagles, they're a run funnel defense. They rank first in DVOA against the pass, 21st against the run. So I can see the Chiefs being a little bit more run heavy here, lean on their short passing game a bit more. That's what happened last week. Mahomes, his average intended air yards on the season was 7.5. Last week, it was down to 6.3. So we're seeing a lot of longer clock-killing drives from them. So that's good for the under. And on the other side, we already know the Eagles are going to lean on the run game. Why shouldn't they? And Jalen Hurts, he's also playing less than 100%. He admitted his shoulder is still bugging him. He had A.J. Brown wide open for a touchdown, and he overthrew him by about 5 yards. So Hurts did look a little rusty as a passer. They have a couple injuries on the offensive line. So everything's pointing to the under here. Initially it looks like the money has been coming in on the under, but the Super Bowl is a very public game. We're going to see a ton of money come in on the over. So I'm going to wait and see if this gets over 50, and then I'll probably come in on the under.
Okay. So you're hoping for some dollars to come in on the over soon, because the under has been getting the action here out of the gate.
Yeah, initially, remember, when the line comes out, it's usually sharps betting it. But this is the Super Bowl. We will have a ton of people making $20 bets on the over at some point. So there is a chance this does get over 50 just based on public betting behavior alone.
Okay, fair enough. Looking at the total in the Super Bowl, 56 game sample size, of course. The over is 26, 28, and 1 against the spread. So just about even when it comes to the total. Nick Giffen, what do you got for us? You look at the spread now as we sit here today. Eagles favored, total just shy of 50.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm looking at, and Sean mentioned he makes this line about Eagles minus 1.5. The first thing I did was I checked our luck rankings, and from there we can get the third order Pythagorean win percentage, and that can be translated into a betting line. And Our third order Pythagorean win percentage makes the Eagles about -2.5. So again, right in line with that -2 number that we're seeing, whether Sean's -1.5 or the third order Pythag -2.5. I think it's a pretty fair line. But like Sean said, there's a lot of banged up Kansas City players and, on the offensive side. And then on the defensive side for Kansas City, I do think this sets up well for the Eagles receivers. Kansas City, they play man defense at the 8th highest rate in the NFL. And if you look at Philadelphia's receivers, they absolutely crush man defense versus a little bit worse versus zone defense. So A.J. Brown, 3.3 yards per route run versus man, 1.9 versus zone. Devontae Smith, 2.5 yards per route run versus man, 1.75 versus zone. Even Dallas Goedert's at 2 versus 1.8. And if you look at their total touchdowns, they have 14 touchdowns versus man defense and just 6 versus zone. And that's despite the fact that teams play a lot more zone than they do play man defense. So I think this does set up well for Philadelphia in the receiving game, as long as Jalen Hurts, has those 2 weeks to rest his shoulder and everything like that. So that's one area that's interesting. The other thing that I was looking at would be the pace splits. Philadelphia, they play really fast, especially in the first half. And then when they get the lead, they slow down by a decent amount. But if they're trailing, they'll absolutely be playing a lot faster. If it's a close game, they'll be playing faster. And Kansas City, they themselves, if they're leading or a close game, will be playing faster. So this is a really great spot for live betting, I think, because we'll have some very big potentially discrepancies in these pace splits in the second half. So you're definitely going to want to tune in to bet what happens live for the Super Bowl. It'll be myself and my touchdown show partner, Gilles Gallant, for that one.
Excellent. And I would like to think we did this on the podcast last night, the Action Network podcast, the recap show from championship weekend. I'm wondering if you want to play Kansas City, don't you almost have to do it sooner rather than later? It's because I get the feeling that Mahomes has the most to gain in terms of resting up in 2 weeks and their receivers. So the receivers are key, as Koerner mentioned. But as it pertains to the quarterback rest, I think there's more to benefit from Mahomes in that line flipping the other way than there would be for Hurts. Not sure what you guys think.
I would agree with that. But we have to remember that Mahomes has 4 wide receivers that are banged up. So it's going to come down to that. Plus, I'm not one to really rush to get a +2, +2.5. I'd feel really stupid if it does get up to 3. So that's why I'm just, sitting back. But I do agree with that. I think the extra week of rest certainly helps Mahomes and his ankle. Like I said, he should be closer to 100% for the Super Bowl. But again, just those in-game setbacks are certainly a risk here. Like I said, there was one he didn't even take a hit. He just made an awkward throw. That's kind of Mahomes' style, making these unorthodox throws where he was able to tweak it. So it did appear to be an issue later in the game.
No question. I just think he's got more to gain than
Hurts, absolutely,
in terms of this window to get ready. Yeah. So, all righty, that's the deal right now. Philadelphia, Philadelphia -2, totals at 49.5. There are some player props up now at BetMGM. Ooh. So, nice. I was actually. Do you want some? Do you have one that you're interested in before we
he wants the punter props.
Yeah, are the punter props up yet? Because I'm already starting that analysis.
No, I've seen quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs.
Okay, I'm going to hop on those. But that's why I don't want to lock anything too soon, because I'm going to have dozens of bets out there. I got to make sure they correlate. So I'm very specific when it comes to my Super Bowl portfolio.
That's good. I mean, this is why we have you guys on. It might not necessarily be a pick. Sometimes the best pick is the one you don't make, but it's also just to remind people that you got some time here. You got to digest some information. And if you wanted an edge, you probably should have got it last night as far as the side and the total. But we're at that point. So, okay, Koerner, we're going to kick you out, and you go enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye. Later.
Yeah.
Look at this crew. Syracuse, Virginia, men's college basketball tonight. My goodness, 3 handsome devils. I don't know where that photo came from. That is, by the way, the late, great Fab Mello, Dion Waiters, who I don't know where Dion Waiters is right now. Maybe Dabbundo knows. Do you know where Dion Waiters is these days?
Is he, if he's not in the NBA, then he's probably in Europe? I don't know.
Possibly, but that's what that shirt says. Of course, Giffen's the Virginia guy. He's got the national title shirt on.
We got to get up on camera there for you.
Yeah, sorry.
I pulled that. Hold
And
an
there's-
outfit change there while we were in that full screen graphic.
Oh, beautifully done. And then, man, Dabbundo, you look so young. I mean, baby
That was
Dabbundo.
first week of college. Oh boy.
Wow. You little orange seed at the time. All right. Syracuse, Virginia, men's college basketball. Syracuse is home, getting 5.5. Totals at 132.5. And based on what I'm reading here, the sharper money and the sharp money's coming in on Virginia, but Syracuse is getting more of the dollars. So Dabbundo, I'll start with you. Are you taking the bait on our alma mater?
Yeah, you said it last week. I tend to be against Syracuse more often than not. They came into the season with an extremely overrated market perception. It was a very young Boeheim team. They had really no returning big-time pieces outside of Joe Girard and Jesse Edwards. And they've really struggled with their rotation, trying to figure out who should get what minutes. They're in a good spot here, though. At home, they just got embarrassed by Virginia Tech on Saturday. I think the Hokies are a much worse matchup for Syracuse just because of how efficient their offense is at shooting the ball from beyond the arc. Virginia has made a lot of threes this year, shooting 38% from three, but consider me a little bit skeptical of those numbers holding up for the rest of the season. It's a lot of the same shooters they had last season when they were considerably worse. When you get into the matchup perspective, Syracuse had a major problem starting games. And you can go back to the first meeting with Virginia. Virginia went up 15 in Charlottesville in the first half, and then they went 7 minutes almost with one field goal in the second half. So the Syracuse defense really kind of honed in on Virginia a little bit in the second half. Virginia also doesn't go for offensive rebounds. And so in a traditional matchup between Virginia and Syracuse, they play once or twice every year. Syracuse plays the zone. They struggle to rebound out of it, and a lot of teams take advantage. But Virginia isn't going to try that. They're going to get back in transition defense and not let Syracuse run at all. And so I think that helps here. Virginia's offense has also been worse against zones this season and last season. Last year, they were about 20% worse percentile-wise per synergy data against zones than they were against man. This year, they're the 95th percentile against man, just 51st against zones. So they don't really have that great of a zone offense to get margin here. And like I said, I love the spot coming home after getting blown out on the road on Saturday in the Dome. And hopefully we don't get the flagrant foul or some free throw magic at the end of this game going against us like we almost did on Tuesday night with Syracuse plus 4.5 against Carolina.
Man, I mean, that that was wild. That was something. Virginia has won 6 in a row, Nick Giffen, and Dabbundo sort of highlighted their shooting. And what I always tend to find troubling and difficult about backing UVA is, can they score? Can they score points? I know they're pretty stout defensively. What's your angle here? Are you going to back the Wahoos?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about backing them to score because it's not the Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome days, the DeAndre Hunter days. There certainly is not as good of a scoring team, but they are much better efficiently this year than they were last year in terms of scoring efficiency.
Yes.
But that's actually not the angle I'm looking at. If I'm going to back my Virginia Cavaliers, I actually agree with Dabbundo. I don't think it's going to be on Virginia's offensive end. I think I'm going to back Virginia defensively by taking Joe Girard under 17.5 points. You can get that minus 125 at BetMGM. And this is just a pure projection value. Girard has scored about 0.47 points per minute that he's played this year. And over a 36-minute projection, which I'm giving him for this game, that would put him at 16.8 points, which is certainly less than 17.5. But that would be like versus the average team. Virginia plays at a much slower pace. This game projects for about 63 possessions, and Syracuse has played 68.3 possessions per game so far this year. And Virginia, of course, has a much better defense than Syracuse teams. The team Syracuse has faced. Syracuse's defensive schedule is only 175th most difficult in the nation, whereas UVA is the 25th most difficult defense in terms of defensive efficiency per Ken Palm. So it's just a spot where it's going to be slower and a better defense that Girard is going to be facing. UVA does allow the 3-ball, but Girard, he's also been shooting above his long-term 3-point percentage. So if you want to call me skeptical, or if Dabbundo wants to say skeptical of Virginia's 3-point shooting percentage, Girard also has been above his long-term 3-point percent. He's been 41.6% in ACC play versus 38.2% on the year and even 40.5% last year. So he's shooting about 1 to 3% more than kind of his long-term average here. He did go 5 for 9 in the first meeting from bonus sphere against the Cavaliers in the first meeting, but he had 19 points. So even just a 4 for 9 outing from 3 puts him under that 17.5 prop. He would have had 16 instead. So I think there's a little bit of regression potential there as well. So I'm projecting him closer to 15.5 points. So at minus 125 juice, I'm happy to play it down to minus 150. And I'm also happy to play it if it moves from 17.5 to 16.5.
All right, Dabbundo, look, he's fading Joe Girard. Girard, the big Duncan guy on the SGPN.
Always enigmatic. Joe, you never know which one's going to show up on any given night.
Look, I mean, it might help Giffen if Girard ends up having, because he's big into the hot chocolate from Duncan. That's his Duncan order. He's got some sort of deal going on with Duncan, it looks like, at Syracuse. I mean, if he has one of those hot chocolates, I'm curious to know what his 3-point percentage is when he has one of those the day of a game in Syracuse. All right, that was fun.
Yeah, well, so Brendan, I just wanted to know, obviously this is our rivalry game here. So if Syracuse does win, are we going to get a classic Brendan reaction? Roll the tape.
Oh, this is... Wow.
That looks like Fagan's in Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken.
It's not. It's actually not. It's
really
in Boston. Yeah.
That's even worse.
That's awful. Wow. Got blackmailed on the show today. Here I am thinking it was just a photo, and now there's video footage being shown on the show today. Isn't that great? Well done by all of you on camera now and behind the scenes.
Got him.
All right. So Syracuse, Virginia, that'll be fun. We'll enjoy it. We can talk some smack and we'll see how that goes. So Giffen's on Girard's under 17.5 and Dabbundo's on Syracuse to cover plus 5.5. All right, Nick, you've got another play for us. What's another game you're going to target?
Yeah, let's go over to Baylor versus Texas. And I'm going to go with Adam Flagler over 19.5 combined points, rebounds, and assists. He's cleared this number in 15 of 19 games this year. I think this is just a bad line. Let's look at the 4 times he didn't clear it. 2 of those were in his illness games in the middle of the year. He actually sat out 2 games and then played 2 games, which he had illness, and he went under in both of those. Then the other 2 games were in his last 4 games where he shot just 20% of the field from the field in those 2 games, including just 1 of 11 from 3-point land in those 2 games. So that's just pure, running cold. Obviously that makes him a positive regression candidate from the shooting department. So while Texas is a tough defense, Baylor has faced a tough schedule. Texas per KenPom has a 95.8 defensive efficiency, and lower is better in terms of defense. So Texas is a good defense, but Baylor has faced a 99.9 schedule. So it's not that much better of a defense than they've been averaging all year in terms of what Baylor is facing. And Texas does play faster pace than average as well. So, then going back to Flagler himself, he's averaged 72.4% of Baylor's minutes this year he's played, but that's actually jumped to 84% since conference play began. And then over the last 5 games, Dale Bonner's minutes have been reduced. He hasn't even played in a couple of the games. That's when Flagler has averaged 90.6% of Baylor's minutes played. So, he's been playing just a ton of minutes. I'm projecting him for 35 and a half minutes on the court in this game. So I'm showing value in over on points, over on rebounds, over on assists, with the most value on an individual category on the assists. But let's just combine them instead. I project actually 22.3 is his median for points, rebounds, and assists. And so over 19.5 seems like a steal. I would definitely bet this up to 20.5.
Looking at the side in this game, Texas getting most of the cash, 80% of the dollars, 54% of the bets on Texas +4. They are hosting Baylor tonight. Dabbundo, do you have an angle or just something to weigh in on?
Yeah, I lean to the under a little bit here. It's come down a few points now. I wouldn't bet it at the current number. There's 146, 145 out there, 145.5. This was as high as 148.5. I would have played it there. Now it's come down. It's really hard to figure out Texas from a pace perspective and an efficiency perspective this season, because they started playing faster with Chris Beard when he was coaching earlier in the season than they had in years past. A pretty big change. And they've only sped up since his departure, since Rodney Terry took over as the interim coach since Beard was fired. So that makes it really hard to project. Both of these defenses have really struggled. And I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong for them, but it feels like when you look at the talent on these two teams, they should be better defensively than they are. The thing that scares me, though, is the matchup, too. Texas had major problems on the defensive glass, so Baylor's going to get a lot of second chance looks. But when they are able to get those defensive rebounds, like I said, Texas is pushing transition a lot more. Baylor, 30th percentile transition defense. It's actually been their biggest problem as a defense, why they're in the 90s in KenPom defensive efficiency. So it's ultimately a stay away from me. Like I said, if the total gets back up to about 148, I would play the under.
All right, and Dabbundo, the other team or the other matchup tonight in college basketball that features a top 25 matchup, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and you're going to go to the home dog.
Yeah, Texas Tech has been arguably the most disappointing team in the entire country, and they've really struggled in Big 12 play. They've had a bunch of really close losses, a bunch of late meltdowns. Meanwhile, Iowa State has run about as good as you can. They were one of the worst shooting teams in the country last year. And credit to Otzelberger, like they went out and brought some guys in and they've improved their shooting, but they have not nearly been as good as their numbers suggest. They're shooting 39.4% from three in the Big 12. The shot quality data says their true shooting percentage should be closer to 35%. It's a huge swing. They've been, the best 3-point shooting team in the conference. Nobody would ever have projected that at the beginning of the season. And so I think it's a classic sell high. Texas Tech also gets to the line a lot. And I think that you could see Iowa State get into some foul trouble here. They're very aggressive defensively. They do turn you over, but they also will foul a ton here. So if you force Iowa State to play in the half court, that's where you can see this offense struggle. Texas Tech's transition defense is still elite despite their other issues. So I like the Red Raiders at home. I know we've been, trying to find the right spot to buy low on this Texas Tech team. They keep, letting us down, but I'm taking them at home here, -110 on the money line. They should be a little bit of a bigger favorite. Huge home court in Lubbock too, one of the biggest in the country.
Yeah, -105 money line at BetMGM, and the spread is +1.5, -120. Yeah, coming off a win against LSU, but they've been struggling, still looking for their first conference win of the year. All right, that was good, fellas. That was good. I'll be honest, I still can't get over that video that was somehow found and put on the show. So I'm still a little bothered by that. And bothered's not the right word, just thrown off. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but
the show must go on.
Yeah,
exactly. You're right. It's true. This is the beauty of live television, live streaming. You got to take the hit and move on. Anthony Dabbundo, Nick Giffen, thanks for talking some college basketball today.
Look forward to trash talking you tonight.
Go Orange.
Love it. It's number 7, Virginia and Syracuse. That's the matchup you need to watch tonight in college hoops. Speaking of basketball, we work our way now up to the pros. Our Action Pro account is something we highly recommend. You can get the prop tool that gives you projections. It grades props as well. And this one on Jeremy Grant comes out as an A+ grade. Let's shift gears now to the NBA. What do we got for tonight?
Hey everybody, it's Joe Dellera, and I've got 3 of my favorite NBA plays for this Monday NBA slate. The first pick that I'm looking at is the Los Angeles Lakers +9 against the Brooklyn Nets. When this game first opened, the Lakers were 1-point road favorites against the Nets, and then both Anthony Davis and LeBron James were ruled out due to essentially load management. I think that this is too much of a line move for those two players being out, especially considering the fact that Anthony Davis has not really been ramped up at this point in time, and he's still playing some sort of limited minutes. And even though LeBron has been exceptional, the Lakers are in a little bit different situation than they've been previously this season when LeBron has sat. For example, today they'll have Russell Westbrook, Lonnie Walker, and newcomer Rui Hachimura, which I think is critically important in this spot. Additionally, Tomas Bryant has played now more meaningful minutes and he's gotten more reps under him, and he should be fine in the starting lineup against this Brooklyn Nets team. When we look at this as well, the Nets have not been a particularly good team without their best player, Kevin Durant. And even though Kyrie Irving has really stepped up and filled in this role, I think that this is still too much of a spread difference between these two teams. So I think from a situational perspective, this is a great spot to back the Lakers at +9, and we're getting it at almost 3 possessions. So I'll be taking the Lakers +9 against the Brooklyn Nets tonight. The next play that I'm looking at is Clint Capella to record a double-double at +110. I want to get ahead of this line right now. Number one, he's played well against Yusuf Nurkic regardless in this spot against the Blazers. But Nurkic is on the injury report is questionable, and we'll have to see if he even plays. If he doesn't play, I think there's even more value on this line, as the Blazers don't have a center that can really fill in the same way that Nurkic can and record those rebounds. But when we look at Capella's history against Nurk, he's been very, very good. Over his last 6 matchups against Nurk, he's recorded 5 double-doubles. And that includes one game where he had 21 rebounds. This is a great spot, I think, for Capella against Nurk. And I like him to record this double-double in a spot where Nurkic may not even play, or he might be a little bit limited due to that injury. So I'll grab that at the plus 110 number. For my final play, I'm looking at Rudy Gobert to record over 11.5 rebounds against the Sacramento Kings. This is a spot that he's played well in. He's played well against Sacramento generally, but now it's a little bit different with the acquisition of Domantas Sabonis. When we look at the head-to-head matchups against Sabonis, Gobert has played exceptionally well, and he's gone over this line in 3 of his last 4 games against Sabonis. Additionally, when we look at his last 10 games, he's played very well, and we've seen this rebounding uptick essentially from Gobert, and he's gone over this line in 7 of his last 10 games, including 4 straight with 14, 13, 12, and 16. I like Gobert to go over his rebounding prop of 11.5 boards tonight against the Kings in a significant pace-up spot against one of the fastest teams in the league. So to recap, my 3 favorite plays, the Lakers plus 9, Clint Capella to record a double-double, and Rudy Gobert to go over 11.5 rebounds. Best of luck on your wagers today, and enjoy the rest of your Mondays.
All right, Joe, thank you. You as well. We appreciate you. Let's remind all of the people that you can find Joe's picks, Dabbundo, Giffen, anything from the show you can find on the app, at the Action Network app, free to download. You can follow Green Dot Daily, and all of the picks from the program are stored there. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $10,000. First bet insurance. Terms and conditions apply. We are off and running in this final... Today's the last day of January, right? One more day, January 31st. And then we're on to February, and we're going to be breaking down the Super Bowl quite a bit here on Green Dot Daily. Super Bowl 57 coming your way in less than 2 weeks now. But as we know, plenty of other sporty things going on. College basketball, the NBA, might even check in on the NASCAR circuit later in the week with Nick Giffen. So we're looking forward to having a good week, and we'll stay strong together through this one before we get into actual Super Bowl week. Thanks to everybody behind the scenes, including the ones who decided to send over that video of me chanting for Syracuse basketball. Thank you too. And all of our guests today. And you, the audience. Thanks for watching. Brendan Glasheen signing off. We'll see you again tomorrow at noon Eastern.